Alright team, today I bring to you guys my Earthshatter Titan. I'm sorry this one took so long, but the Titan took absolutely fucking forever to get through the campaign. Jesus Christ. I do my campaigns totally SSF bare bones, just to get a general feel for how the character would be on a league start. It took me 24 hours in this guy. On my Merc, same circumstances, literally took me like 8 hours. Level 88 right now currently, and this build is honestly dope as fuck. A couple of notes about the campaign is that I didn't get movement speed boots until like Act 5, which is one of the reasons why it took so long. Also, this character has absolutely zero mobility or movement speed utility at all. Leap Slam is horrendous, so that is very rough. I will say one of the perks of Warrior is that you get screen clear instantaneously at level 3. If you rolling slam and you cancel the second hit into a Bone Shatter and you throw stun build-up support on this first hit will prime everything to be stunned, and then Bone Shatter will just kill everything on the screen with a couple of supports. Some of the roughest parts about Titan in campaign, firstly, is that you're just so slow, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. You're really reliant on the weapon that you find. Like, I remember I found it was the next base up, and it had like 10 to 17 fire damage on it. It was unironically like 400% more damage on your fucking melee attack. You're really reliant on weapon drops for single target DPS, which is annoying. I will say all of that changes the moment you hit Act 5 and you get your first tier 3 support gem. Upheaval literally unlocks the entire build, and once you have Upheaval, god, this shit is so good. Also, where's my boy Jumper X? I have finally brought to you what you've asked for. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this build made me really butthurt because I didn't know that Upheaval was a support gem in the game. Had I known this existed, I would have started from like day 1 of early access launch as an Earthshatter Titan, because this shit is crack. I pretty much only play melee and PoE 1. Jug is the only Ascendancy I ever run. I love Earthshatter Jug. It's not quite Earthshatter Jug, it's close. I mean, significantly more dog shit, like horrible in comparison, but honestly close enough. Overall, I think this build is fantastic. It has really good clear. It has incredible bossing. It's extremely slow. There's nothing you can do about that. There's absolutely no way to fix that problem. I probably mitigate it more so than any other Titan player in this build as well, and it's just, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's pretty tanky. You definitely take a lot of hits. There's a bunch of caveats to that statement, and I will go over that. Provided you do not run a bunch of bricked ass map modifiers, this build will actually pop the fuck off. And it's incredible bossing. Literally, I think I'm like 8 div in, and it bosses better, far better than my 50 div Witch Hunter, and it's very, very close to like, you know, my 90, 100 div Stormweaver. To clarify, when I talk about the mobility thing, I'm just saying that because I run a Thrillsteel, and this is 10% extra movement speed from Onslaught, and that's pretty much it. I also don't take any of the anti-movement speed nodes in the tree. Speaking of Thrillsteel, let's talk about why this is actually the most important item in the build, and it is your single greatest boost to survivability in mapping by far. From what I've gathered in my general experience, the tankiness problem of the Titan seems to be threefold. First and foremost, life and armor are just wildly inferior defensive layers to something like evasion and ES. Getting up to 80% evasion with 15k energy shield, you will never ever get anywhere close to that level of survivability of life and armor from just a base level. But that being said, I do think that armor is pretty solid. I think that this gets a lot of flack for being kind of shitty and you feel pretty paper mache. But that brings me to my second point, which is the other problem that Titan has is that it's just too slow. The problem is that when you like rolling slam into something, look how long I'm moving forward in a straight line for. This game is literally all about getting something out and moving to the left, and I'll demonstrate that right now. In this clip, you'll notice that as I go up to fight this group of elected officials, 2 of them spit venom at me, and they have a lobbyist behind me trying to stab me in the back. However, because my Earthshatter is fast enough and because I have enough movement speed, I'm able to get the Earthshatter down, move to the right, out of the way, shout freedom at them, and liberate America without taking damage. That exact scenario is probably responsible for the vast majority of Titan deaths while mapping, other than on-death effects, of course. And if you're using any other skill like rolling, slam, or stampede, or sunder, or something like that, and you're just taking the normal points in the passive tree that look good, that give you big damage, but reduce your attack speed, you are absolutely fucking Swiss cheesed and murdered for 10% years before you ever had a hope in fuck of completing this slam. You unironically don't even have time to get your dick back into your pants before the Red Dawn Kalishnikov firing squad has dumped their magazine and they're hanging out at a fucking Denny's saying, thank God it wasn't that bitch that shoots lightning. This general lack of speed and forced clunkiness on the Titan, I believe, is why everyone runs Giant's Blood and takes a shield. Because the only way you can actually fucking survive the infinite onslaught death funnel of bullshit flying at you while you can only move in straight fucking lines is to block it. You don't actually have another way of mitigating it, and armor will not protect you from 9,000 hits all at once. Lastly, the third big problem with Titan tankiness is the fact that you cannot move while using melee skills. Now, this might not seem like that big of a deal, and I'm actually okay with the fact that you cannot move while using melee skills, but the reality of it is, this slight little list to the left and to the right while you are mapping does wonders for dodging an insane amount of incoming damage. Play any ranged class, how much proj, how many attacks and shit do you dodge by the skin of your ass because you can move while you're shooting. Imagine if you were a witch hunter or a sork or a ranger or something like that and you could not move while you used your abilities. Imagine if you had to stay still the entire time you were attacking and casting. How many more times would you die? Once you factor this into the Titan, who is incredibly slow, very clunky, he has to move in straight lines or not at all in a lot of the abilities that he has, once all that gets incorporated, it's not that the Titan is actually really that squishy or that armor is not that great of a layer. It's the fact that you are taking an incoming amount of damage that is multiple orders of magnitude higher than any other class in the game by far. The only thing that this class is actually missing is a universal ascendancy node called Viva Pinata, where every time you enter a map, by default, you're hung from a fucking branch blindfolded, waiting for the monsters to come kick the shit out of you for 10%. With all that being said, this brings me back to Thrillsteel and why this helmet is so good. Not only does it give us 10% movement speed, it also gives us 20% attack speed. Speed is the only offset that we have to solve all of those problems that are inherent to the Titan, other than sewing out with a shield, but fuck that. We take speed on our gloves. We find a very high attacks per second base item. There's a little bit of a push and pull here. You don't want too low of a damage value. I think this was like 2 div or 1 div or something like that. In our tree, we of course take these skill speed nodes right here, grab this one right here for 5% attack speed, and we take none of the anti-attack speed nodes. These are horrible. You want to avoid all of these like they're the fucking plague. I will point out to you as well that attack speed is so important when you're mapping. I don't even take heavy swing when I'm mapping. I use this on bossing, but if you try to map with it, it takes your attack time from 0.55 to 0.61. No bullshit. That 0.06 is so noticeable and you will take noticeably more damage. It's literally not worth running because that's how important attack speed is. On the topic of speed, I will briefly mention which map modifiers brick the shit out of us. It's anything that has to do with slowing us down, with the exception of cooldown recovery, but I'll get to that one later. Speed is everything, and things like temp chains are absolutely horrendous, although it's the least offensive of the three. Chilled ground is an immediate brick and pass, no thank you. And then, of course, anything monster damage is cold. That one is the worst one by far. And those are auto breakers. You cannot complete the map unless it's like a traversal map or something like that. But if you're trying a breach with chilled ground or monster damage is cold, there is no shot. You will be overran and obliterated instantaneously. You cannot run those modifiers. Moving on, let's get into the mechanics of the build and how it actually works. So the reason why Upheaval is so good is because it gives us 2 additional fissures. That would be these right here. Normally you only get 1 of these, and this ability actually sucks ass and it's totally useless when you only have 1. But once you get Upheaval, it just totally opens up the game. And like I said, once you get to this point in campaign, Earthshatter is absolutely cracked. On top of Upheaval, we will always take Martial Tempo. This is required because, again, we need to offset this loss of attack speed. This is the most important thing. My third link, you could probably do Fire Infusion. This is what I ran for the campaign. These are like pretty solid out the gate. I take Heft for mapping and then Magnified Effect. When I go into a boss, we swap out Magnify with Concentrated Effect because we actually don't want any AoE. We don't care about that. This is just for clear. This does an ass ton of damage, and then we swap out Heft with Heavy Swing. When you're bossing, the attack speed doesn't matter at all. You're totally fine. And ideally, actually, I would use weapon set points to drop, because I take a ton of AoE in the tree. Ideally, I would use weapon set points to drop out of all these dog shit AoE nodes and just run a bunch of hardcore single target shit, but that will be later down the line, I'm sure. Also, you will notice that I have this bad boy 6 link. Your boy hit a nasty corruption, and we got the 6 link on it. Thank fucking God. Of course, however, this was after I sacrificed 2 divine to the RNG gods to I tried to divine this shield and then hit it with a Vow to get like a high increased effect and then a 3rd socket. And here we are. And now look how pitiful I am. I'm begging. I'm literally begging for someone to buy this. In fact, let me take this moment and learn you guys something real quick. Okay, listen up, team. When I started out bartending, I started out at a casino. And what the toothless crackheads at the casino taught me was that in order to gamble, not only do you need to sip cherry Pepsi and lick the screen through the hole where your two front teeth used to be, you also need to believe in a bunch of superstitious, dumb shit in order to actually get a dub. A while back, one of my comments asked me, why do I delete everything on Cursor? And this is precisely why. The only way we can get better RNG is to sacrifice to the gods of RNG. And I'm a man who listens to his betters, and so it's obvious in this case, the only option here is to delete this bad boy and pay our tribute to Chris Wilson. And I know you guys are thinking, wow, I can't believe he just did that. He could have sold it, made his losses back, etc., etc. But I'm telling you right now, if we went to the casino floor and we asked all of the fentanyl zombies there if that was the right move, well, they'd probably just ask us for money, but I like to think they'd say yes. But anyways, back to the build. So those are our links on Earthshatter, and how this works is we send out our fissures and we use our war cries to blow up the fissures, and then that is what hits for that big fat 648 attack damage explosion. Our main war cries that we use are Infernal Cry and Seismic Cry. Early on, you won't have enough war cry cooldown recovery, and in that case, you will just kind of alternate between the two. But eventually you get to where I'm at, where my Infernal Cry has a 2-second cooldown time, and we can more or less just use it constantly while we're bossing. The main source of our war cry cooldown recovery rate is going to come from a ton of these jewels. We always want 15 or 14% on each one of these. You need an ass ton, because this has a base cooldown of like 8 seconds, so you need a lot to bring it down. There's also a bunch of Warcry nodes on the tree. We take this whole Warcry cluster over here, grab these ones as well, over here as well, and over here and over here. I mean, it's just a lot of Warcry nodes, but you're going to need all of these. I will say that this is one of the considerations of Warbringer that I think might be better, which is that Warbringer just has automatic no cooldowns on Warcries. I'll cover the Ascendancies in just a minute, but first let's talk about Infernal Cry and why this is absolutely the most cracked thing on planet fucking Earth. Empowered attacks gain 35% of damage as fire damage per 5 power of enemies in range up to 150%. So you can get up to 150% of damage as fire on empowered attacks. This is what empowered attacks look like. We hit it, I have a 2 here, I then cast, hit it again, cast, hit it again. All of these have 150% damage as fire, assuming I have the necessary power. Now, with power, this is how you look at it. Unique monsters always have 20 power. That means that whenever we're fighting a boss of any kind, we have a 100%, or it's like more like a 97%. I think every like third one won't be empowered. You need a ton of CDR for that. But pretty much every single Earthshatter that you throw out will be empowered with 150% damage as fire. So this is an insane amount of damage. On top of this, we take pre-med, which gives us 15% more damage on it. Ingenuity, obviously, for the CDR. And then we grab Raging Cry, because this is just 20 rage out the gate every time we do a war cry. And then we use Enrage War Cry, which consumes half of that rage to give us 30% more damage on our attacks that are empowered. And as you can see, by pressing Infernal Cry on a boss, this is literally like 200% more damage almost on Earthshatter. It's an insane amount of damage, and it's not reflected in the tooltip at all, by the way. So I wouldn't focus on the tooltip too much. Finally, we take Seismic Cry as just a filler. This is only for when our Infernal Cry is down. Herald of Ash is just an aura that gives us cannibalism and vitality. You don't actually need this. I just run it just because. Who cares? Berzerk. I take Berzerk because it gives you more rage effect. I have 44 max rage. I spec into rage. And then also it gives us that 2% of physical attack leached as life per rage. I don't know this for sure, but if it is the case that that does in fact increase the amount of life we leech, I went into the life leech nodes as an extra like regenerative defensive layer, and it feels pretty good. So because of that, I decided to take rage, especially because I have Berzerk. Looking at the Ascendancies, I honestly don't think either is very good. Warcrawler's Bellow and Great Wolf's Howl, these are two pretty solid Ascendancy nodes for the Warcries, especially this one. You spend so much investment into getting the Warcry cooldown down. This might just be worth it in general, especially given that the Titan really isn't that great in my opinion. But especially if you're going to take a shield and go block, then absolutely Warbringer is the way better call. Renly's Training and Turtle Charm are obviously absolutely insane. Looking at Titan, we have Earthbreaker. This is pretty good. It's 20% more damage in Aftershocks. And the thing is I don't know if Aftershocks apply to the down hit, the first hit of Earthshatter, or if they apply to the explosion themselves. It seems to be both. I don't actually know. It's very difficult to tell. So unless this does apply to the actual explosion damage of breaking the fissure, which I don't think it does, this is just whatever. It's just 20% more damage. This is 10% more damage. Obviously, you need the life nodes right here. Crushing impacts and surprising strength, fucking blow. Stone Skin is actually pretty dope. I mean, Stone Skin is a ton of armor right now. I get a ton of PDR, and this is just a solid chest piece for it as well. But I do think that I'll probably end up getting that percent life chest piece for Socketed Soul Core from Arbiter of Ass, and then I'll end up dropping Ancestral Empowerment and Stone Skin and taking Hulking Form. I'm pretty sure Hulking Form is absolutely fucking busted, but I'll let you guys know in the next one. To give you my closing thoughts on the build, I think this build is absolutely cracked. It is unbelievably strong very early on. It's definitely a budget build. Like, you can get this going with literally 80x, 50x, 30x. It does not take a lot to get off the ground. I think it would be especially strong for a league starter, given the constraints of the fact that it is a warrior. I can't stress this enough, and it is the unfortunate reality because I wanted it not to be the case. The fact of the matter is that the warrior is just an inferior class to everything else in the game. Between all the little things like the force clunkiness, the actual passive tree, having to take life, armor not being that great, the general kind of problems of being ultra slow, the fact that like your jewels don't have any really great utility, like it's unbelievably annoying that only mana fucking builds get the plus mana on kill and plus health on kill jewels. That is extremely AIDS toxic. You don't get attack speed on jewels, which is extremely shitty. You have to have Warcry cooldown recovery rate, so we're stuck with rubies. It's just a lot of little shit like that, and I'll mention some of this. I'm probably gonna make a video about melee and particularly about the warrior and how to fix it and all the problems with it. But yeah, it's still a good build overall. It's just not ever gonna be near as strong as any of the meta shit like Ranger, Sork, Monk, that sort of thing. To give you a general idea of where I plan to go with the build, obviously I'm going to gear the ever-loving shit out of him. He's at, like I said, 8 div right now, and I think probably like another 10 to 20 div, he would be an absolute monster, although he'd still probably die in maps to fucking cold. One of the things I've actually thought about, this is no bullshit, is anointing Suffusion. That way you are unaffected by chill while leeching mana, because it says mana leech on it, and you just always have a mana leech source. And then I would take off Price of Freedom. And in order to replace this, I would drop Burning Strikes and go here and then level up one more time, grab Price of Freedom. And then that way this would cover your mana issues, and this would cover immunity to chill, which may or may not be worth it. I don't actually know. I mentioned earlier, of course, the weapon set thing. Definitely have a lot of like really useless nodes that are not great for anything other than clearing. And we could drop all these and probably pick up something pretty dope for a single target. I have been experimenting with Stampede as well. I think there might be something with Earthshatter, Jagged Ground, Stampede, blowing up Jagged Ground, some that sort of thing. I'll have to figure it out. But anyways, you guys, that'll be all she wrote for me. I will see you boys in the next one. Deuces.